Hello, lovely podcast people. This is just a short intro to a podcast, which was a guest appearance where I appeared on the Mind Muscle Project podcast. Difficult to give you an overview of this one. Really enjoyed recording this. It was quite varied, which is cool. Talked about, as usual, some rapid fat loss stuff. And it was good, actually, because got into some topics that some of you, or I don't think I've necessarily touched on in my own podcast with regards to that. Some stuff about training in a rapid fat loss phase. Some tougher stuff about myself, my daily routine, some areas there. Funny bit about my quote-unquote dream podcast guest. Anyway, I hope it's enjoyable. It's a longer one, which I know lots of you request for me to do longer podcasts, but you get them as and when with me. But this one, whenever I'm a guest on someone else's podcast, they've prepared lots. It's just nice flowing conversation. So I hope you really enjoy this. As ever, reviews on iTunes, thank you very much. And I will just say, because of when we're going to release this podcast, sign up for my MacMail list if you want to come to the event on the 27th of November. It's going to be epic. It's the conference gift, the famous conference gift is being manufactured as we speak. So that's going to be super cool. Loads and loads of attendees, daytime, still some spaces at the dinner, after party. We've got our biggest after party space yet, our little VIP area, which I think is about 120 people at the after party now, which is quite nice. So yeah, if you want to come, don't pay full price, sign up for my MacMail. Do it that way. Unbelievable value for money. Just a reminder, I'm just going to say this really quick, right? Unbelievable. Look at any other event in any industry, really. I mean, I might be wrong there because I don't know. But in the fitness industry, health industry, nutrition industry, whatever. Look at what people charge. And this isn't me, slight on them. They need to make money. But that's not what our events are about. They're not, a source of revenue for us. They are just something that we want to put on every year to bring people together, to provide expert information, not, just Joe blogs with 20,000 followers on Instagram. Here's his opinion, or here's a round table, whatever. These are real experts, apart from me, obviously. I'm just the Instagram face. But yeah, on really important topics. And it's, for the price, like you get all day refreshments. I've been to events, so it's several £100s to attend. You don't get any tea or coffee. You maybe get a jug of tap water on a table, if that, but no, often not. You get no food, no drinks. Ours, you get the 4-star Orchard Hotel buffet hot lunch. It's phenomenal. You get all day teas and coffees, snacks, etc. You get a conference goodie bag, which is worth like 15, 20 quid. And you get all of the information, all of the talks aspect. Can't talk. You get treated really well. It's very professional for pennies. And if you want to, you can have a optional handshake, hug, fist bump with me, selfie, if you're one of those people who likes that. I love that, obviously. But yeah, I'll leave you with this podcast. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see some of you on the 27th. Much love.
All right, My Muscle Project, welcome back to another episode. Today I'm very excited to bring on someone who I think many of you have probably seen before or heard before. You've definitely heard of his university, and that's Martin McDonald. So Martin, thank you for joining us on the podcast. I know it's been a little bit of a journey to get you on. I think I sent you a message back a while ago, and then a friend of ours, James, reached out, and then we went back and forth for a bit, but we're finally here. So thank you for being on.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for having me. And people do often say that it's a bit of a, I'm not great with my timetabling, but yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. So thank you.
No, that's all right. I think it's pretty common with all intelligent people, just so focused on the work, so focused on other things with the blinders on trying to solve humanity's problems that they forget to put the Google Calendar events in. But we're here now. So like I was saying to you at the start, there's a lot of different topics that I wanted to get your thoughts on that I think you have some really good, unique kind of points of view on. And they're kind of all different. So I want to try and link them all together. So I thought maybe a good starting point, which I thought would be it's kind of a discussion I think that's come up a few times with my circles of just people that are obviously trying to battle the obesity epidemic in all different various ways, which I think in many ways we're all trying to do in the fitness community. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think has been one of the main causal factors, or a couple of the main causal factors in causing the obesity epidemic? Because I think the discussion started the other day is obviously you can look at the USA right away and be like, okay, worst case scenario right now. But then you're going to look at nations like China, for example, that obviously had no issue 10, 15 years ago. And now they're starting to emerge as, becoming one of the issues that the USA has, getting an obesity problem as well. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you think is kind of driving the obesity epidemic.
Geez, yeah. Let's start easy, shall we? So this idea, the obesity epidemic, and the answer I'm going to give I could wrap it up really in a boring way, and in a way that is easy for people who are, you said there, I think we're all in the industry trying to tackle this in our different ways. And I disagree, not with you, but with that. If you take that literally, there's a lot of people in our industry who are not here to help people. They're here to make money and nothing else. And they maybe have lost their way along the way, or really they just see our industry as one where it's easy to make money because of desperation, right? You have desperate people and people prey on that. And sadly, that's the world we're in. So those people will try and disagree. And this is what they constantly do, to take the focus away from what works to their program or their pill or their potion, etc. And realistically, it's the energy balance equation, right? Most of your listeners, I'm sure, will be aware that we've got this calories in, calories out, whatever you want to call it, energy balance, physical activity, expenditure, and intake. And what has happened? Oh, sorry, can you still see me? I think my camera's just done something funny.
I can still hear you. Yeah.
Oh, you still hear me?
Yeah.
What has happened is we've got this scenario of the food environment is making us eat more. And you'll get different people going, it's carbs, it's sugar, it's fat, it's added fats, it's added sugars, blah, blah, blah. And realistically, if you look at the data, it's all of them. It's that we're eating more. Now, why are we eating more? There's probably two reasons. One reason is food engineering, the food environment. There are people whose entire job it is to make you want to eat their food. And they combine these different things, which we have innate drives to eat. People are going, sugar's more addictive than cocaine, this, that, and the other. And where that stuff comes from is the lighting up of the areas in the brain. And realistically, cocaine is hijacking a normal pathway of reward. It's not the other way around, how some people are thinking. It's like, oh, that's the addictive drug center in the brain. That's not what that center is. That center is developed to reward us because, unfortunately, we have progressed quickly as a species, but we are still really built for scarcity. We are evolved, if people are happy to talk about it that way, for scarcity. So we can learn foods that are high calorie through gut-brain axis, eating stuff. It goes into our guts. It tells our brain, we get this dopamine release, and we can learn. So even through visual cues, we can perceive the reward from what we're about to eat. And therefore, and when you get hungry, the perceived value of that food goes up. And also it creates more of a differential between what we would term healthy foods and essentially lower calorie density foods. And so the differential goes up. So you're more likely to push towards that. And so then you have food cues, you have marketing, you have smells, and the environment and the affordability. And you've got all this other stuff as well, poverty, and therefore where there's food, essentially food fear, or maybe will I be able to access food? And then you've got cheap food, and people start talking about stress responses. So, if you live in a very stressful, and it's actually, there's quite cool studies on this, and I love them because I make jokes about them, which go down really well in Australia because people have a sense of humor in Australia. Most other places they don't. So there's the chocolate cake women study that I talk about, and essentially they piss off women and then they go, do you want some chocolate cake? And then the women eat loads of chocolate cake, and then they're nice to them and they don't stress them out, and they go, do you want chocolate cake? And they eat a little bit less chocolate cake. And I'm like, people are like, oh yes, science, all these lab coats and lab. I'm like, no, that's science, and it's super, super real life. We can literally relate this to real life. And you'll know clients, etc. It's like, oh, I'm so stressed and I just wanted to eat all the ice cream and chocolate cake. It's such a cool study. And like a randomized control trial. It's not just some joke TV that, randomized control trial with actual empirical data coming out of it. So going back to your question, it's like, okay, we have this food environment, and that's just designed to make us overeat, overconsume, come back to it. And then all that other little stuff that I've mentioned there, that is just the minefield. So the second part of that, so there's like two parts I'm going to talk about here, but the second part of one of my parts is then just this genetic issue, because then we have this situation where there's like the maternal epigenetics. So essentially the way a mother eats will affect her unborn child. And so we get this maternal epigenetic environment where we're essentially making children more prone to weight gain when they are born. And there's two factors to that as well, in that just the socialization. So if I can say, sort of fat families, essentially because of the way they are used to eating, is just, it's almost contractable. You learn the way you eat, you are fed a certain way, etc. And so, and there's no judgment in anything what I'm saying here, it's just the landscape that I'm describing. And so you've got those two factors then. And so this is why we talk about prevention is so much better than cure, because cure is very difficult and comes with certain roadblocks or things that pull us back. It's much easier to keep it off to one extent or another. Then once we have to lose it, our body's then kind of fighting against us. So you have these tricky situations so that's my answer in terms of the food consumption, and the two parts of that is the environment. But then over time, we're now 60 plus years into this kind of trend that you're describing, and it's only really getting worse. And then the flip side of it, which I won't talk as much about, it is just physical activity. We're doing everything we can to make our lives easier. And it's a recipe for what we are seeing here. You don't need to elicit weight loss for the metabolic benefits of exercise to make someone extremely, or to, impact someone's metabolic health a lot. They do exercise. They don't need to focus on weight loss, and major factors, risk factors for their, cardiovascular disease risk, etc., get better. They don't have to count calories. They don't have to lose weight. The exercise doesn't have to burn loads of calories. It's simply a factor of being active. And we're doing everything in our power not to do that, whether that's our jobs, but even then, our hobbies, our just our lifestyles, we're flipping lazy, right? So we're programmed in many ways to seek the easiest route, easiest path, and therefore and plus technology is just making everything easier, and we do less physical activity.
Yeah, I was having a discussion yesterday with one of my clients about the tech, so the startup tech world. He does a lot of investing in that, and he just talked about how our expectation for startup tech apps now is so much. You used to be able to build an app and then on the go, as it breaks, fix it, breaks, fix it, and people were a lot more forgiving. But in many ways now, if something isn't perfect by the time we get it, and I think this carries over to all different things, it's like they're not interested. And so I think in many ways tech's been really good, but then by virtue of it being really good, our expectations for everything is like, no, unless it's super convenient, ultra easy, one click, I don't want to touch it. Amazon set a standard now. It's like, it's not getting delivered in 2 hours with one click. I'm not interested.
Yeah,
It's
it's
lazy.
so true. It's so true. And it makes you expect those things because you just become used to it. And it's one of those things with our courses. I actually get a bit of kickback. We are training professionals, qualifying them, and I've taken this stance of not spoon feeding people, and people get irate. I'm paying you. I'm the customer. You do this. And I'm like, and just literally, I will respond. Someone will say in the student group, hi there, I've got a question about this, or Martin delivering a lecture on this, asking a question. And I'll go, remember lecture 3, research methods? This is a perfect time for you to go and find that out. And, in this instance, because that is a very specific scenario I'm talking about, he was absolutely fine. But there's other times when you say that to people and they go, I'm the customer, you find it, you're here to work for me, sort of thing. And in all different ways, we just will not spoon feed people, in the sign up process, you do this, if you don't do it, that's up to you. Just because I want to almost help people in a very non-tangible way to be better. When they come to being fully qualified professionals and go self-employed and they become a nutritionist, it's actually a little bit of a life skill of just like, don't expect to be spoon-fed. If you want to go far and you want to be successful, you can't be spoon-fed. And so, yeah, it does upset people sometimes, even if you're just super polite. You're like, I'm not doing this for you. But yeah, so tech has made us that way. Amazon Prime has made us that way.
If there's one thing to blame, we're going to blame Amazon Prime. We'll go after them. Okay, so yeah, that's really good. I want to then shift a little bit into, you were talking about how our work has made us a lot, in many ways, very stagnant. Work takes up the majority of people's days. And then, they find very little time outside of company work and family time and socializing to fit in exercise. And like I was telling you at the start, and as all our listeners know, we've opened this new gym. We're working specifically with founders, executive partners, directors, so all people that, in some instances responsible for billions of dollars in their decisions, in other instances responsible for hundreds, if not thousands of employees. So super high stress, a lot of pressure, a lot of money on the line, important people. And kind of found two groups of them at the moment. Group number one, which is the majority, value health and fitness, because I think all high performing individuals tend to not neglect their health. Whether they're doing a good job or not is another thing, but they do recognize that it is important, and it's something that if I want to keep being a high performer, I know that my body and my system and my raw materials need to be working and in good order. And especially as they get a family, right? They see the responsibility of being around for their kids. And then there's this other group, which is the group that got it and stuck to it and built the habits very early on. And they're almost abnormally fit. They're like, running triathlons, and they can do 1,000 pull-ups, and they got up at 4 a.m. and did an ice bath and did 7 saunas and, did all their emails, before 6 a.m. But they're the minority, but both similar professionally, but one group, both have a focus on health and fitness. One group extremely successful, almost in an overdone way, but then another group really struggling, overweight, boozing is a big problem with it. I wanted to know, if you got a client like this, where do you go in terms of a starting point? I think generally with these kinds of guys, and I'm sure you've worked with them before, obviously personality wise, a lot more, just tell me what to do, I'll fucking do it. And in most instances, they're a lot better at doing it than the average person, just because they carry across the habits from work into their health and fitness. So where would you start with someone like this?
Yeah, interesting question. So it's so funny that you've described them that way. Like, I've not been working with clients for maybe five years now, but I've had just like have flashes of people, my old clients, as you've said that, and I'm like, yeah, that's him, that's her. And so where would I start with these? Am I basically mainly talking about the ones who maybe are struggling with their health?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
The
not
other
the
guys,
hyper ones.
they got those.
Because they're sorted, yeah.
They just want a place to train. That's cool. And
Yeah.
the people that are overweight, stressed
Yeah.
out, don't sleep enough, boozing too much, that sort of thing, but ready to make a change.
Yeah. So, and I think I'll just take a step back with ready to make a change. You've hit the nail on the head again. Sometimes family can change something. Sometimes a degree of success can change something, I think, with regards to, okay, I'm going to start looking after myself now because I've done really well here and I need to be working harder. I once had a client say to me, I want to be able to function and only sleep 4 hours a day. And then I can work more and this, that, and the other. And I was like, that's not the goal. The goal's not 4 hours a day. But that was such a funny scenario. And which is a funny one because I can function on 4 hours sleep. I think I'm probably one of those 0.1% genetic, the gene where you don't need sleep, but it's not something you can necessarily train into people. But anyway, this market, because you've mentioned alcohol as well, sometimes with some of these big clients, it was a case of us getting the bloods done, getting the test done. And it's like, look, this is not good. And sometimes you can't start there because telling someone they're a high functioning alcoholic is hard. It is hard and people don't want to hear it. And we've had lots of those. But when you have a test, you obviously don't ever say that. You don't say it in the first instance. But when you have a good relationship with someone, it's like, this is an issue. This, you really care about your health. The alcohol is an issue. And because you can show them data, a lot of these people are these blue personality types and red and blues. And when you can give them that data and you can show them and like, we can improve this, but we need to adapt alcohol intake for a start, but also, and so again, if they have that level, there's so much to unpack in your question. It's a lot of it comes down to that motivational interviewing of just like, because you've said they'll just take it, but I guess I'm pushing back a bit on your question in that when we my staff or I have gone in on the alcohol thing, because it is a big issue for some and it can really undermine some goals because we understand what alcohol does in terms of inhibitions as well. So they can be all straight down the line. And detected at the conservatory. Oh goodness, hold on.
That's right. Sounds like a state-of-the-art security system there.
It is, yeah. It's actually linked to home and it talks to the office. Let me just, sorry.
Motion detected. Silent alarm activated.
Yeah, gun turrets up. So sorry. I need to tell her I need to switch her off. So where was it? This the alcohol thing and what was I saying there? Getting the data, challenge the alcohol intake, and then the inhibitions so they can, you tell them to do something, they do it, they apply that habit forming processes. They sometimes will have a PA who can also help them. That's one of those things with myself, with having a PA. It does mean I can achieve so much more. It does mean that I'm not good with routine. I'm not good with lots of those kind of things, which other much more successful people than me have all these amazing routines. And they've I remember working with these people 5 years ago and they're just like boom, boom, boom with their lifestyle, but you can implement them. But when alcohol comes in, it reduces inhibitions and people start forgetting and being lazy with whatever they're doing. If they're trying to achieve a certain goal, get a certain number of protein feedings to gain muscle, to recover from the new training, or eating things that maybe aren't going to be helpful with a calorie deficit if their goal is to lose weight, etc. So alcohol is the big area. But I've got this phrase that I use. It's talking about low-hanging fruit, excuse the pun. Low-hanging fruit is where I feel like a lot of personal trainers new to the industry or nutritionists or health practitioners fall down, in that they get something in their head about sleep. And sometimes it's an age thing, and I'm including myself in this as a younger practitioner, pre-kids, running a business or having a full-time job, pre-responsibilities, etc. And you just think everyone can prepare Tupperwares and 6 meals a day and blah, blah, blah. And this is where being an evidence-based practitioner can help you, because you suddenly realize people don't need to eat 6 times a day to stoke their metabolism. And when you realize that, you can start to actually work with people in the confines of what they do. So looking at low-hanging fruit is, what is their goal? What is the principle of achieving that goal? So the principle of fat loss is being in an energy deficit. The principles around muscle gain, if that was one of their goals, is our progressive overload stuff and the stimulus from training. And also we can then augment that stimulus through nutritional interventions. But what is the principle? And then what within their routine and their lifestyle and their nutrition and their training is happening currently and is taking them the furthest away from moving forward? What can I do first? And unfortunately, sometimes people go, right, we're going to look at sleep and we're going to get you preparing these meals, and you really need to focus on, and I've had those clients because they've got so much money, so much expendable income, they want to buy the results. And that's often another discussion around. And I got led in my last sort of 3 or 4 clients were these exact individuals you're talking about here. And I didn't really want to work with them. And so I had some very frank discussions of, you're not buying me and you're not buying the results. The onus, and this is a conversation really I should have been having with people my whole career a lot. The onus is on you. The responsibility lies with you. I'm facilitating this process. You can't, and by buying the most expensive XYZ, by buying this organic, by having Alaskan salmon, whatever, it's not going to get you the results. By installing these red lights inside your sauna in your bedroom is not going to detox your fat cells and make you lose fat like your last nutritional therapist told you. That's an actual conversation. And so we rather than going to all these itty bitty things, it's like these people are super busy, super important humans in their worlds. Getting them results with sometimes the minimum impact on what they do is exactly what you need to do. And so if you can look, when at that time, I was like, do you know what? I might go all in on just me being a practitioner rather than having a business. And I was going to call myself a nutritional architect. I just came up with it. I was like, do you know what? Because that's what I need. That's what I'm doing. I'm looking for the infrastructure I need to create within their life. And I'm being an architect of their nutritional lifestyle. And I'm designing it around their preferences, their goals, and them as a human. What can I do with the minimum impact on other stuff to get them to where they want to go? So it's focusing on these low-hanging fruits, and they're different for everyone. It could be something as simple as, you see this period in the day, you see this, what was that famous one? It was like a unicorn Starbucks rainbow latte something or other. But it was like 1,500 calories in one drink. And it might just be that they're like, yeah, I'm having this. And that's these simple, and they might enjoy that, but it's having the discussion, can we change that? And instantly they've removed 1,500 calories from their diet. And then you can and that's all you've done. You do nothing else. But again, you need to motivate them and make them feel like they want to feel like they're working hard. They don't want it to feel like it's too easy sometimes. So you do some other stuff that you get them on board with. And oh, look, I'm losing fat. It's so easy. And creating stuff that fits into their very busy schedule, that you can do. So one client that I had, he he didn't have a private jet, but he would go first class everywhere. He was, wealthy enough to have a private jet, but for some reason he was traveled. And so he would send me the menus from the first class. And so I was going through and I was just like, the types of options you should pick, which was such a strange scenario when it's like the caviar and the lobster and this, that, and the other. And we just had some discussions on like, if you're going to choose these options, this is the types of things that you should be considering. And it was just putting in such basic things that he could make simple decisions. He's not carrying Tupperware onto a plane. He's not going to not eat, for instance. And it's just going, this is a little key for you, a little principle. I want you, when you look at this menu, this is amazing, right? This person that I'm talking about is exactly the person you're describing. And I said to him, so when we look at this, we're looking at kind of the fats in foods and the carbohydrates, and we want to consider carbohydrate foods and fat foods, and it's just easier for us to consume a lot more calories when we combine them. And he said to me, what did he say? He said something like, I said, do you know what I mean by carbohydrate foods? And he said, I don't know, and I don't care to know, but I assume you mean things like potatoes. And I was like, wow, what is the most unbelievable statement for, like you said, just so clever, and you kind of forget that nutrition to them is just, it's not something they've considered. I don't care, and I don't care to know. I don't know, and I don't care to know. But anyway, so I ended up just even simplifying it even further for him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's my kind of crux of my answer to your question, is these low-hanging fruits, is looking where I can have maximum impact for minimum effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great principle really for all clients, regardless of how busy or how much money they have. It always comes down to cleaning up the bad habits that everyone has. Maybe some guy on his rest days burns half the amount of calories he normally does on a training day. It just sits all day, 12 hours a day, doesn't move. I've had some clients say, I look at their Whoop scores, which is like, I don't know if you've heard of the fitness tracker, and it's so low on rest days that I just said, if you just build 15 to 20 minutes of walking into your routine every day, we'll probably start on the fat loss journey, because it's just absurdly low on some days. And it's just simple things like that. But let's say we start knocking off some of the low hanging fruit, some of the basic stuff, we get the alcohol under control. And then we start looking at, because for a lot of these guys, the calorie deficit conversation, like you said, they don't care to know. And so how am I just kind of building it in for them and then educating them more along the way? How do I get them fast results now so that I get some buy-in? And one thing I've heard you talk about with your rapid fat loss is, I think there's some, mythology around going slow, and that some people think that the only way to do it is to go slow and do it a sustainable way. But I know you have some different thoughts on rapid fat loss and buying at the beginning. So I'd love to have you kind of share your side of things on this.
Yeah, cool. So, and that's also interesting in terms of what you said there earlier about they will do, they tell me what to do and I'll do it and I'll implement it. And you can do something like a rapid fat loss protocol. And it's always funny. When people ask me this question, they're kind of quite polite in terms of whatever, you've got some different thoughts. And I'm just a bit like, I'm right and everyone else is wrong. And
I wouldn't want to say that, but yeah, it's true.
And it's this thing of when people go, okay, in your opinion, it's not my opinion. It's the opinion of the entire body of evidence. It's the empirical data we have. I'm just the guy in the middle telling you, because no one's bothered to read it ever. And I'm not, people start going, I did put it on my Instagram story today, and it was actually one of my old students who said it. It was like, you're a proponent of aggressive fat loss. Does it affect your mood? And I was like, I'm not a proponent. I'm not like this messiah coming and bringing the new truth. It's just the truth that's always been there. It's all the empirical data. But it's just an option. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not selling a program. I'm not trying to convince people of anything. I'm just telling you what the fact is. And if you don't want to listen, you're an idiot. And the fact is that we know, and I understand for people listening, sometimes they'll get confused when I say, a 90 kilogram guy, relatively active, doing some training, and this, I've done this a few times just to kind of put it on camera, a proof of concept. It's an N=1. It proves nothing. But again, I'm not proving anything to you. You can go to all of the scientific literature, and that tells you what I'm showing you here. And it doesn't suit anyone. That's something to bear in mind. Nothing is a one size fits all. But we know that me eating 900 calories a day versus me eating, and since I've started talking on podcasts and, just people talking about it more, and I get these messages all the time. Martin, what is this? What is this black magic? I'm starving on 2,500 calories a day in a deficit, and I'm eating 1,200 and I have no hunger. You're a whatever wizard. It's just what happens. We know it happens. The empirical data, the group and the fast fat loss group that are losing 4.4 pounds per week versus the 2.2 pounds per week group, average, give or take, applied calorie deficits calculated by the researchers to achieve those weight loss goals, have less hunger. The fast group have less hunger than the slow group. It's an enigma, but it's not, because we understand that these calorie deficits, and one of the proposed ways this might be working is ketosis, which there is a long-standing discussion around ketosis and what that does to appetite, and why there are lots of proponents of the ketogenic diet out there. So we have this scenario where people are less hungry whilst losing fat at a hugely increased speed. What's one of the major reasons people don't get results or can't stick to diets? Hunger. And any diet is lame. Any calorie deficit is fairly lame. You still have to restrict to some extent. You still can't do whatever the hell you like. So I'd rather be in this process. Again, I'm saying I'd rather because not everyone's the same. Get the job done, get amazing results quickly, which from a client's perspective, getting buy-in is a big deal. People often go, oh, when you cut carbs, you just lose water. It's not fat. And some people are just a bit motivated by the scales going down. Whether or not that's a good thing, that's not the discussion. They're losing that fat. You can have a discussion as you coach them. Look, as we add back in carbohydrate, that some of that weight might come back. It's not an issue. It's lean body mass. It's a good thing, blah, blah, blah. Talk about reverse dieting, diet breaks. But if you're just starting to work with a client and they need a bit of a kickstart or whatever, that might be motivating to them. And I'll tell you what's frigging motivating is waking up every day and the scales are lower, you're looking leaner in the mirror, and you're less hungry than you normally are. It's class. And what's even better is knowing that you're not doing yourself any damage. So then people start going, oh, you're damaging your metabolism. You're going to get metabolic damage. Well, then we go to the other literature that talks about that shows it doesn't exist. And that people aren't damaging their metabolisms. And I've seen lots of fitness professionals talking about this. And this is, over the last 5 years, the industry has changed massively. I've been kind of banging this drum, and, initially people pushing back and discussing it. And, I get sent these YouTube, these people, friends, oh, look at this. I was listening to this podcast and your name came up, which is quite cool. People start discussing, this study, slow versus fast rate, the slow rate were able to gain muscle in their deficit. Okay, well, let's look at the study methodology. Okay, well, they dieted for 8 weeks, the slow group, and they managed to gain a teeny bit of muscle. Cool. The fast group dieted for 4 weeks. And at that point, their data was used to compare to the 8 weeks. Well, that's not fair
Mm.
because I've got 4 weeks where I could have been in a calorie maintenance or surplus and test me at 8 weeks. And let's see what the difference is. And you can, any normal person can go, yeah, well, obviously it's not fair to compare 8 weeks of training versus 4 weeks of training. It's silly. And then people start comparing the hormonal impact, the fast group, testosterone. So a 4-week study, fast versus slow. Oh, well, the fast group, their testosterone levels lowered more. Yeah, but they lost twice as much weight because we've compared on time. So what were my levels when I was at your body at the 4 weeks fat loss? Because I'm twice as lean as you are. Yeah, my testosterone levels are going to be slightly lower, but I'm leaner and I can push them back up. So people don't compare like for like because they don't read all the data and they just read stuff to try and support their own agenda or opinion or save face. And I don't have a dog in the game. There's nothing. I could be proven wrong through whatever reason. There's a study which I've been banging on about for ages now. It's now 3 years post-study, and they keep bringing out more data. It's on perimenopausal women or maybe postmenopausal women, and it's basically that. So again, people start talking about weight gain afterwards, right? Oh, you're going to rebound, you're going to gain all the weight back. No, it doesn't happen. We've got the 12-month data, we've got the 24-month data, we've got the 36-month data. In that study, we've got the 5-year and the 10-year data elsewhere. Maybe not 10, actually, 5 that I can think of. But you see, I'm talking with my hands now, which isn't helpful for people just listening. But if you imagine the curves, you have a really fast drop down one, and then you have other comparisons like a medium drop down and a slow drop down. And then you stop the dieting phase. Everyone kind of gains weight back to some extent, 1 degree or another, over the following period. But you follow up at 12 months, 24 months. And the group that lost the most fat is the one that is better later down the line, maybe simply for the fact that they just lost loads more fat in the first place. Now, then we can have the discussion about weight loss maintenance, which is a cool discussion. But while we're on the subject of you regain all the weight and more, it's BS. That's not happening. That's not what the empirical data says. So, and in that study, the 36 postmenopausal women, I can't, that is annoying. I can't remember. But they've brought out some data on their bone mineral density, and they have a significantly worse bone mineral density in the rapid fat loss group. Now, whether that's people need to understand the difference between statistically significant and clinically significant. Now, something can be statistically significant. This person lost 0.5 kilo and this person lost 0.3 kilos, and that's statistically different. And you go, is that any different in the real world? No, it's irrelevant. Doesn't look any different, doesn't feel any different. It doesn't. So again, we need to understand, okay, what's the impact of that clinically on these females' bone mineral density? But likewise, this study was not an optimal study as per what an MNU certified nutritionist would be doing with someone, or whoever. They weren't doing a decent impact training, resistance training, etc., that would maybe promote bone mineral density. They weren't necessarily optimizing protein intake, blah blah blah, right? So straight away, I'm not someone who's going to hide away from that data and go, oh, I was wrong, oh, forget it, it's rubbish. And I'm also not going to just go, oh, I was wrong. We take it for what it is. Okay, it's interesting. And actually, maybe rapid fat loss, we can go, do you know what? I would never do rapid fat loss with a pregnant woman. And I'm going to add someone else to that, is maybe a female who is in a situation where bone mineral density is of extreme importance, which we know around the menopause starts to become a much more important factor to consider. So, all these different things, we've got this data. People aren't screwing their metabolisms. They're not getting more hungry. They're not getting more eating disordered in their eating. That's another thing that people come back, oh, you're going to give people eating disorders. No, incorrect. Where's the data for that? Doesn't exist. Good, get lost. It's like, don't come at me with these reasons that it's no good. Just like provide some data, or just shut your mouth and listen and learn. So It's a super cool strategy to have in your toolbox to consider. It is not for everyone. And also people doing it half-hearted is just the one thing for your listeners I will mention. Oh, I'm going to drop to 1,800 calories, 1,500 calories, 1,200 calories. If I diet on 1,200 calories, 12 or 1,400 calories-ish, I'm super hungry. It's not until I'm in the 1,200, 1,100, 1,900 realm where I just have no hunger. So just something for people to bear in mind, to play with, to understand on this topic.
You know what's interesting as well, like as I'm hearing you talk about the rapid fat loss thing, is I think a lot about what is the optimal training while doing it as well. And I think that there's definitely probably some training methodologies that don't really suit it as well, because
Yeah.
it's almost like
CrossFit. Do not do
Exactly.
CrossFit. Everything I've just said there, definitely don't do CrossFit.
No, there's a certain demand that you can place on your body that you probably shouldn't. And I think that there's almost like the harder you train with more intensity, especially when you bring in like a cardiovascular component. If you add in a long run that's really intense, if you add in a super high intensity workout pushing 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, people almost, and I've seen it in myself and I've seen it in all kinds of athletes as well, the harder you train, the harder you just want to kind of reward yourself and binge afterwards. Whereas you may not necessarily be that hungry, but it's just from the intensity of the training, you almost are trying to like reward yourself with food. So it's like, if you can keep the training at a pretty reasonable level during a rapid fat loss phase, obviously you need training and or would be optimal, then you won't feel like when you finish, like I am so obliterated. Whereas my, super 1,000 calorie protein shake, all my supplements, that sort of stuff, and kind of undoing all the rapid fat loss dieting that you're doing. If you're just training is just a reasonable amount, you kind of walk out, you're like, oh, it's pretty tough, but it's good. I did my workout today, bit of a light sweat. You're gonna put yourself in a more favorable position.
And that is something that I try and get across to people, that it's not the time to be looking to build muscle or make progress in the gym or get fitter necessarily. That's one of the nice things about it. It can be done in a very short period of time, 10, 15 days, as a bit of a blitz. And people always overdo the volume. The thing that I would say for any coaches out there who understand recovery and kind of, if we talk about terms like overreaching rather than overtraining, but if you're pushing someone into realms of overreaching or just sessions that are taxing recovery, immediately you're out of the realms of where aggressive dieting becomes as appropriate. You really want to be dialing stuff back to complete maintenance levels. You can still lift extremely heavy, which we probably want to do to promote muscle retention. I say probably, that's actually incorrect. Some people probably want to, if it's a goal. Others don't have that goal, but those of you that do, athletes, etc., I think is where my mind went, probably are going to want to try and retain lean body mass. So if that is your goal, we want to lift heavy, but we're not trying to push anything. We dial back the number of sets. We stay one away from failure maybe. And as you've kind of said there, I've worked, but I'm not obliterated. And in the days following that, as you've said, people tend to, appetite will be upregulated with different forms of exercise to different magnitudes. And that's also something for people to understand in themselves. There's the psychological impact of wanting to reward yourself, as you've mentioned. And there's also the physiological impact on, gut hunger hormones. Unfortunately, we're all quite different. It's very, very murky in the data on whether cardiovascular is best, or high intensity interval training is best, or resistance training is best. NEAT, just walking, kind of trumps most things in terms of not having this impact. So that's something that's definitely worth considering, your steps and paying attention to during these fat loss phases. But you're 100% right. Don't don't do CrossFit if you're going to try and lose fat quickly. You're just going to have to do the slow and steady thing, or take a period where you're going to dial stuff back, focus on maybe a strength block for 2 weeks. Try not to go crazy that you're not doing all your CrossFit shizzle. But yeah, so it is important to factor in what your exercise is like if you do attempt something like that.
And just to give people rough guides, because I imagine some people listening to this might want to go and try it for themselves or for their clients. Do you normally hit a roughly like a 50% as kind of the starting point of maintenance calories as like a rapid fat loss realm, and then the next kind of, say they were in it for 30 days and the next 30 days afterwards, do you kind of say, okay, add 20%? Do you have a rough framework for that, or do you just let sort of the individual figure it out as they go?
Yeah. I'll give some. They're not exact.
The hesitancy is palpable.
Yeah, exactly. Because people, I'll say something and people go, Martin McDonald says this is the exact amount, and therefore, and people go fight on the internet, and then I'll get messages from people going, apparently you said this. What's that based on? So, do people use kilos or pounds more in Australia? You use kilos,
kilos, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Okay, you're normal.
Yeah.
All the American listeners will have to kind of adapt. So, you're looking at the extreme is like 8. This is extreme, right? So don't go and do this. Also, I will just say, well, you can do it, but it's, I'll just say, like, as a bit of a disclaimer, our industry is rife with eating disorders and disordered eating. And so just look after yourself and your clients, everyone. So it's not that this is going to lead to an eating disorder either. Anything like orthorexia and stuff like that, it's not obviously a recognized eating disorder as such. Well, I'm not going to go down that route. But anyway, you can cause these issues through just a hyper focus on anything. It's not necessarily the amount of deficit. That's not correlated in the research to what's happening, but it's just, again, just look after people. So 8 to 10 calories per kilogram body weight is like the extreme. Like 8 is extreme, 10 is obviously slightly less extreme. And the answer is what you said about the person does need to work it out for themselves, because as soon as exercise comes into play, it can push these boundaries massively. And not even just exercise, but non-exercise, non-physical activity, thermogenesis, and just non-exercise, so just general walking, will impact it to some extent. So that I'm giving you the extreme end. Probably don't go much lower than that. You're going to obviously, I imagine it's obvious for your listeners. Obviously, most of those calories are going to be coming from protein-esque sources. So, and not, the industry is a bit hyper. Protein's amazing. You must have protein this, more protein, the better. 2.5 grams per kilogram, is like a minimum almost these days. But like 1.5, 1.6 is a great amount to be hitting. With more moderate deficits, people are coming to me going, my client's getting amazing results, but they just won't eat enough protein. And I'm like, sorry, say that again. Yeah, my client's getting amazing results, no hunger, recovering well, but they just won't eat enough protein. I'm like, why do you not hear the words coming out your mouth? Why does it matter? Why are you trying to get them to eat more protein? Well, because you're supposed to. They're supposed to be eating 1.8 to 2.2. No, they're not. That's a guideline to help them get results. Think about this. Just like screw your head back on. So, like people, you can get great results. 1.2 is 1.2 in the literature is a high protein diet because it's 150% of the guidelines. And you see people getting great results with a high protein government guideline, 1.2 grams per kilogram diet. So yeah, you're going to be wanting to get most of your calories from protein. A significant proportion around this 1.5 plus. If you want to go for 2, fantastic. If you want to go for whatever, go for it. Fats and carbs, irrelevant. Go for whatever suits you. If you are training, maybe carbohydrates is going to be a better option. But if you're not getting many carbohydrates with 8 to 10 calories per kilogram. So let's be frank. The last point I want to make on your question is,
was it coming out of the deficit? That was the second part of my question.
It wasn't, so we'll go there in a minute. It was still about choosing these levels. Where you sit, you said, do they pick the number? They pick these calories. Okay. So I just want to make this point because I imagine you've got a lot of people who are probably quite lean who listen to your podcast, and things start to change a little bit just with regards to if their goal is performance, if their goal is to gain muscle. I imagine you have some sort of bodybuilding following that listen. There is a maximum rate of fat loss that is the maximum appearance of energy to be oxidized as energy to be burned, and the maximum rate of appearance of fatty acids into the blood is limited by the amount of fat that you have. We're actually considering buying a DEXA scanner for our office because we just think it'd be flipping cool to have one. And once you've got a DEXA scanner, you can do stuff like this, and we want to maybe start publishing some research ourselves. Once you have your body fat percentage, you can do some cool stuff, but using a half decent estimate, or going and get a DEXA scan, or going and getting another method for assessing body fat, and being careful with understanding the inaccuracies within it. If you divide your body fat percentage, let's say you're 15% body fat, so you're relatively lean. If you divide it by 15, which is a figure I've come up with, there's different numbers out there. That will give you the percent of your body weight that you can lose per week purely as fat without losing lean body mass. So you're 15%, or let's say you're 30%. Let's say you've got more body fat. But the reason I wanted to say that is because for some of your leaner clients or listeners and clients, it's just bearing in mind that your rate of maximal fat loss is lower than someone with higher body fat. So this person who's 30% body fat, who weighs 250 pounds, I use numbers, 100 kilograms, let's say 220 pounds, 30% body fat, divide 30 by 15 and you get 2. They can lose 2% of their body weight a week. 2% of 100 kilograms is fortunately 2. You can see why I've used easy numbers here. So 2 kilograms or 4.4 pounds per week of pure fat. Now you get, people in the industry going, you lose half a pound to a pound, half a kilo to maximum a kilo a week. But it's not true. We can lose 2 kilograms off that person, which isn't a hugely fat person. 100 kilograms, 30% body fat. That's not someone who's hugely fat. They can be losing at 2 kilograms of pure fat. So then we can start going, okay, well, what's that as a deficit? Okay, 2 kilograms of fat as a deficit is 15,400 calories deficit that we need to create from somewhere. And then we can start working that back in terms of what's roughly our expenditure and what's roughly our intake, or I say roughly because we're incredibly bad at reporting our calories as humans. So hopefully that starts to kind of build a picture for people of, okay, this is how it works, and that starts to then give us a picture of like, okay, where am I creating this deficit from? How often might I need to refeed? How low can I go with my et cetera, et cetera. So that's that. And then how do you come out of this? It doesn't matter, is really the crux of the answer. If you've done it right, if you've done it, and I would encourage people, if they do this, is to go look up my work on it, of like, you're not doing this to punish yourself. You're not doing this because you can still eat, when I'm still eating sweets and I'm still eating tasty foods here and there during this aggressive deficit. And I'll be 5 days into an aggressive deficit and I'll feel like eating at maintenance. I'll feel like having a pizza and I'll have it. And I'll have the conversation with myself. And I won't turn around and go to, I had a binge last night on some pizza. Because it's not a binge. I've just eaten some food that I like. But we do this stupid stuff in the fitness industry of it's binge or it's unclean or I shouldn't have it. And it's just like, no, I'm a human being and I really fancied some pizza. And I'm not going to, or, people going, I was going to go on a date and I didn't go because, she wouldn't go to a restaurant with calories on the menu, whatever.
Because none of those exist.
So it's understanding that afterwards people go, oh, what about all the weight regain, the rebound? That's the word everyone uses, the rebound. I'm like, there's no such thing as a rebound. Where's this rebound coming from? Oh, because people just start binging. Well, no, they don't. What are you talking about? People just start binging. You've seen someone. Well, no, I'm not talking about someone. I'm talking about me. Oh, cool. You have eating issues. You need to sort that out. It's not this that's causing that. It's something that you are perceiving in the way you eat. Your perception is that you're just restricting and you want to binge. Therefore, you probably shouldn't be doing any sort of diet. You need to get your relationship with food right. So how should you come out of it? Whatever you want. Go back to maintenance, obviously. You can go into a surplus. You can do whatever. Obviously, if you've lost significant weight, calorie maintenance levels will not be the same as they were before. They will have changed. But you can jump back to whatever your new maintenance is and take it from there with regards to your goals.
Yeah. That's good. No, I'm glad you spent some time and outlined that for people. Hopefully it's clear. I think where the rebound thing comes from is, I reckon you look at the number of hits on some of these videos of the YouTubers and the influencers, right, that bring their audiences, in some cases millions of people, into a weight loss journey, a journey to the stage, right? My next bodybuilding prep or whatever. And they are dieting down so extreme, and they obviously have a bit of a twisted personality in some ways to get on stage in your underpants, which I'm sure you would appreciate and understand and know as well. But
yeah,
of course, the first thing they're going to do for their own, just entertainment, and then the entertainment of their audience, is go, okay, what is going to be the massive cheat meal that I'm going to have? Yeah. So people naturally assume, well, this guy who looks really good, who's a genetic freak, who cut really long, he rebounded hard after, which he only really just had one meal or two meals or a day of crazy eating. But then he probably went back to some kind of maintenance thing. They just automatically think, well, that's what happens. You just do these crazy cuts and then you just go out and you eat these massive cheat meals. Well, no, it's either that or, like you said, you have a problem with eating. You have an eating disorder that you need to figure out.
Yeah. And lots of those people do have, it's an unfortunate thing that people lie and hide their disordered or eating disorders, on their YouTube or their Instagram or wherever. And it leads other people astray, which is really unfortunate. And lots of our industry have this issue, sadly, because they need to look a certain way for whatever their income or, and they've probably been misled by some of the forefathers of the nutrition industry who were crap, let's be honest. And left, just left people in like not a great way. So yeah, it's comparing the bodybuilding end result to the end result of what us mortals and normal people do is just silly. But you're exactly right. That's the extreme people get the views and the hits and and therefore, how often do I need to have a cheat meal? Like, oh my goodness, what a question. How often do you cheat on your wife? Just like once a week, once a month? How often? How do you gauge it? Like what? But it's, I'm saying it nastily. I was fully taken on board by these cheat meal things when I was competing in natural bodybuilding, and it's crap, and it screwed my relationship with food. So I'm not, lots of people out there, I'm not saying it with judgment. I've made all the mistakes there are to make. And I just hope you'll be teachable like I was, and come to this sort of place of like, yeah, they don't boost your metabolism. They don't do all that stuff that people tell you they do. They're not a great thing. Stop using the word cheat when it comes to food.
Yeah, it's a weird word. It still somehow hangs around. But right before we jump into the final four questions, Martin, you know it's getting late there for you, but the one question I wanted to ask you, and I know obviously you're a part of this industry anyway, but maybe it hasn't been done, maybe it has been done, or maybe it could be done differently. But is there a single, and this is something that I always think about, and we can give the caveat here that you don't need supplements necessarily, but is there a supplement that you think doesn't exist, or hasn't been done well enough, or hadn't really been done well enough? Maybe it has been, maybe it needs to be a little better. A single supplement out there that you would like to see become more popular? Maybe it does exist, it's just not popular at all. No one really takes it. Is that that one kind of thing that you're like, wow, I just wish there was like a better hydration product out there, because people, our water is so shit. Or maybe, I just wish there was a better quality tasting protein or something out there. I don't know. Is there a supplement out there you feel like's missing, or maybe we don't have the technology to kind of build it just yet, that would be really helpful for, kind of Gen Pop, and it would be good if it existed in stores a bit more often? Because supplements is, everyone wants to take supplements. First thing they do when they start training, what supplements do I take? I'm like, what about less alcohol? No. What supplements do I take? What about creatine? It's like, okay.
Yeah. For any particular goal with your question, or?
Yeah, I realize it's always contextual, but I think that, there are some supplements that obviously have more applications than others. So like, obviously when you take zinc, that has less applications than when you take a protein powder, for example.
Yeah. What a question. Wow. Like, because it's like things that are done well, like, what's the most broad spectrum supplement? Probably vitamin D, maybe omega-3 fish oils, EPA type DPA stuff. But those things exist, but people still aren't using them enough or aware of them enough. I suppose in the general population, like the levels of deficiency of vitamin D are astronomical across the world. Like even in Australia, where you're all naked all the time. People are deficient in vitamin D.
I don't know your experience of Australia. It's not been my experience.
Oh, really? When I was there, everyone seemed to be naked. I don't know if that was just the effect I had. No, but it's nice weather, right? It's lots of the time in Sydney. And the problem being is that people wear sun cream because of the issues with skin cancer. But then we're not making enough vitamin D, because you can't make vitamin D very well through sun cream or at all, sorry. And then likewise, there's actually only specific hours of the day where you make vitamin D, even if it's hot, even if in your direct sunlight, you're not making vitamin D. If the sun isn't at the right angle with the atmosphere, and in Australia, because of where you are, with the latitude, your time periods of actual vitamin D taking time versus if you're more towards the equator are actually much less. So yeah, you've got super nice weather, but the sun's rays are not at that spectrum when you're making vitamin D. So it's funny. It's like, yeah, there is vitamin D out there, and it's really, vitamin D3 is super well absorbed. I would love to see more research around vitamin D, and then the necessity or the impact of, people always say when I talk about vitamin D, oh, should I take vitamin K? And I'm like, maybe not. Like the research just isn't that strong. What kind of vitamin D? What vitamin K? What does your diet look like? Are you getting plenty of vitamin K in your diet? Therefore, it might not be a limiting issue. And then there's also the combination of magnesium with it. I'd like to see some studies that stratified subjects by sort of magnesium, vitamin K status, and therefore supplemented the vitamin D, because some people are supplementing with vitamin D3 at decent doses and their levels aren't increasing very much. And we know there's interactions with body fat because we can store the vitamin D3 in our body fat. Therefore, that's impacting results. but people aren't getting the same outcome with the same dose of vitamin D3, which means the best thing you can do, and if you're working with clients that will do this, is get their levels tested and supplement specifically based on those, and you get happy clients who are getting these optimal results, because vitamin D has such a huge impact on so many areas in terms of mental health, physical health, fat loss, bone health, muscle function even. So it's that, that's going to be my answer, is someone needs to come up with do the research so we understand it a bit more, but then some sort of super supplement, which is like D3K and magnesium at a really specific ratio, which probably would never exist. Like I'm going to use the caveat of like, we might not have the technology, but someone needs to come up one day with that technology, and broad spectrum cheap testing for everyone. That's my answer to probably one of the hardest questions I've ever been asked on a podcast.
Yeah, we started with the obesity epidemic and we're finishing with it. So you're welcome.
Thanks.
But I definitely, for people wondering what the sunlight hours are, I'm pretty sure a friend of mine had an app for this once, and I think it's like it's like 6:30. I think it's like 6:30 a.m. to like 7:30 a.m. It's like an hour or so. It's like not long, and I think it's in the morning. I think it would explain why when people go on holidays, besides lots of different reasons, but they end up going to a beach house. It's pretty common in Australia, and they get up and they go for a surf, or they go to the beach for a swim as the sun is rising, and obviously replenishing all this vitamin D after they've spent the last 800 days in a row going from apartment to car park to office to car park to home, on repeat, to getting burnt at the beach once every now and then, and they feel so good. So there's a lot.
I think it will change as well based on the time, the time of year as well. So there is an app that people can use called D-Minder. I don't know if it's free anymore. It was for a lot of the pandemic, interestingly, but D-Minder, how to get your D. So
right, interesting. Okay, so Martin, final 4 questions. So the first question we always ask, I know you have a podcast, I know it's not interview based, but if you were to bring someone on and interview them, who is someone that you want to speak to that is alive today, that if you did sit them down, they would answer anything you want openly and honestly? Who do you choose and why?
Do I have to particularly like them, or it's just because they're going to be completely honest, so I get to ask them anything?
Whatever that answer is for you. You don't have to like them at all. You can hate them, in fact.
Okay, cool. Because the first person I went to, this isn't my answer, was Jordan Peterson. I'm not sure if you're aware of him.
I am very much aware of him. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. So I've not read any of them, but I just think he's class. I think he's super, super clever. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says. I just think he's insanely clever and insanely well read. And this will sound big-headed now, but I'm like, I see him as someone that I'm like in the nutrition industry, but that's not. I just see similar elements of how much he has a passion for reading stuff. He used this phrase, I've read everything front to back. But my actual answer is Joe Wicks. Do you know who Joe Wicks is?
Yeah, he's the body coach. Is that? Yeah,
that's him. Yeah, the body coach. So he's my answer, right? Because I called him out in 2015, and it kind of went. There was a bit of a stir, a bit of a craze around it, and loads of people who follow me now are like, that big thing. I called out this Australian girl, Ashley Binns or Ashley Bynes.
Ashley Bynes, yeah.
And loads of people followed me because of her. I call it Ashley Binns because it's funnier. I actually, when I was in Sydney, I actually put a bin on stage and kicked it off and was like, all right, Ashley. Anyway, so it's really academic talk, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But just because, and in fact, he's had a kid recently, and his wife put 3 stories of his kid on her story, and she used a GIF, GIFs on Instagram that you can stick. I have my own GIFs, and she used my GIF on the story. It was the kid jumping in a puddle, and it was my GIF, which is like slapping your face or something or whatever. And loads of people sent it to me, like, your arch enemy's wife has put your GIF on her thing, like that. And I'm like, arch enemy, are you kidding me? But anyway, within like a short period of time, that one that had my GIF on out of 3 had vanished, the middle video. And I was like, I'm so intrigued him or his social media team have blocked me. This guy's uber famous, astronomically famous and rich and successful. And I'd love to have a sit down conversation with him and be like, because I'm interested in, I think he's a good person. Like, deep down, I think he's good. But I just have questions around his integrity. So many people have failed with his plan. And I just want to go like, what's the deal, man? Like, you went around telling people that they needed to exercise less and eat more to lose fat. That was your slogan. Do you think that was a good idea? I'd ask him these difficult questions. I wouldn't have to do it on a podcast. I wouldn't have to, like, Joe, if you ever listen to this, right? I just want to have this conversation in private. I'll never tell anyone. I just want to know, it's just one of those things that just niggles at you. I think, if I did get given this opportunity, I want to know, to me, he seems like he was out there for the money, but he's obviously a very small cog in what became the Body Coach brand. So I think his brother is involved and there'll be shareholders and whatever, and they're making millions and millions and millions. And just like, did you want it to stop, but you just couldn't because you were too far gone? I've worked with celebrities before and I got to know them and I sort of felt like I got on with them and they were friends. And then, celebrities on his similar level. And then, I see 6 months, 12 months, whatever down the line, they're just selling out. And, in their cases, they're just kind of caught up. They have an agent, they need to, whatever, I'm there going, what, we could really help people using your name with what you've found out. It's not all about these pills and potions and detoxes. It could really help people. And then a year later, they're basically the English version of Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know what nationality she is, but she's a joker and whatever, all the crap that she pushes. So anyway, that's my answer. Joe Wicks, the Body Coach.
So Joe Wicks said, because I actually, besides knowing who he is, his thing was exercise less and eat more. That was his prescription. Did I hear you say that right?
He basically, it was his advertising campaign. Yeah, he put on buses all over London. Eat more, exercise less was his slogan, which essentially he's saying, eat more, guess good food. But it's just this thing of like, he basically still had a very carb phobic plan. You weren't allowed carbs. You could only eat them after doing a hard exercise session. And he's basically saying, don't do loads of cardio, do my HIIT sessions. There was just so many inaccuracies. It was so nutritionally terrible. He had this recipe book, which was, there's this one which someone calorie counted and sent to me and I posted about. It was like serves one chicken chorizo meal, 0 carb, but chicken chorizo. It was 1,200 calories for one meal for one person. And I was like, that must serve 4. They're like, no, it's in his fat loss book. So, he's basically saying do HIIT. And, and he said, I did this other one. It was like, real food burns fat, not dust. And he's basically saying, he was calling out, I suppose, crappy fad, low calorie diets, which do exist. I've talked about low calorie diet, but there's so much more to what I've discussed here. You're still looking at good nutrition. I'm not saying get this sachet, which is 100 calories and drink 3 of them a day, which is kind of what he was talking about, these dust diets that people, and it's not the diet, it's the mentality that people are going into and the lack of support and whatever that's really screwing them. But again, he just said so much stuff. Like he was a personal trainer for 5 minutes and then he's a multi-millionaire. And now in the UK, they're talking about letting him sit on panels with regards to public health.
Oh no.
Yeah. Interventions. Oh, no. And I actually got sent this is funny, we're having this discussion. I got sent a screenshot by a friend today and from a private group, and they're discussing him. And in the comments threads, it was like, they need to get this guy out and and someone said, who would be good? Martin McDonald. He seems really balanced and evidence-based and critical thinker, blah, blah. He'd have the public's best. And they sent to me and said, look, you're being discussed. And I was like, it's super humbling. I don't know how good I'd be, but I'd be flipping better than him just because I'd sit and listen and think. And I've got a qualification and 10 times longer experience in this industry. And, people go, oh, you're jealous. I'm not jealous. I'm not I've achieved everything I want to in the industry. And they're like, oh, he's made so much money, you're not going to make him earn less. I don't care. Like, who's Pablo Escobar, the cocaine guy? He had a lot of money. Like, doesn't make him a good person, or whatever. Anyway, so he'd be my guy because I just want to talk to him. I think deep down he's a good human being, but what happened? What went wrong?
It'd be interesting.
Yeah,
It's always interesting those sorts of scenarios.
yeah.
Okay, so second question: is there some kind of routine, habit, something you try and do each day that's like kind of makes it onto your to-do list, mentally or even physically, that you want to get done, that makes you feel like, okay, at least I got that done today. The day's successful. I'm a little bit more fulfilled. What is the thing for you at the moment?
Honestly, there is absolutely nothing. I am the least routine person I know. And I'm racking my brain. There's nothing. There's nothing. Right? Someone go to me, well, what about brushing your teeth then? No, I don't even have a routine for that. People are like, oh, you got such great teeth. You must have a great dental routine. No, I'm terrible. You must do a gratitude journal every day because that keeps you happy. No, I think gratitude's great. I do try and do gratitude occasionally. But I have no routine. I have nothing. Like I got my PA hates me because I'm so bad. I don't even get my to-do list done every day, and I have it sectioned like day tomorrow. She does it all, and I just don't follow it. I just can't do routine. I have no set bedtime routine. Last night I went to bed at 3 a.m. The night before I went to 4 a.m. I was up at 8 one day. I have no routine. And I think the thing for your listeners, right, is just understanding that sometimes fitting into these optimals, I try and be normal. I go through these periods of like, I'm going to wear my blue blocker glasses. I'm going to have good sleep hygiene. I'm going to live a normal life. I'm going to stop going to bed at 4 a.m. And I'm going to start doing this. And it'd probably be better for relationships in the future and this, that, and the other. It's been the thing in my past relationships. It's like, just come to bed. I'm like, I can't sleep. They're like, you just need to get in a routine. I'm like, I can't. I've changed for over a decade trying to be normal. It don't work. I don't know why. Anyway, so, but people going, you need routine, the best CEOs in the world. I'm not uber successful, but I'm relatively successful. And I don't have good habits. I don't have a routine. I don't have none of this. And I make it work. I maybe could be better, but I make it work and I'm happy with the way it is for now. So anyway, it's a crappy answer to your question, but it's honest.
No, I like it because I think I've felt that way as well for a lot of different reasons. And it's refreshing when you hear people, like you said, that have relative success, that you don't need to fit into the Jocko Willink 4 a.m. wake up, take a photo of your watch.
Yeah.
That's 3:55, got everything done before the sun rose. You're like, well, that sounds awful to me.
Yeah. Exactly. But like, oh, the early bird gets the worm, and if you wake up, you'll be better, and you die earlier if you don't do this, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, whatever. I'm happy living the way I do.
Yeah. No, I mean, as long as you get done what you need to get done, the important stuff, then moving the needle, then however you do it, I don't think it really matters too much, to be honest. Okay, so third question. What is something recently that you changed your mind on that for a while you held as a strong belief, which I'm sure in your practice and in your field happens on a very regular basis? Well, what comes to mind?
Interesting. The thing I would say, you've put the word recent in there, which adds another caveat, but because over time, yes, I will just say that there's so many things I've believed or not questioned and just done, and then realized, you know what, you must eat breakfast to lose weight, and must the whole 6 meals a day. Like I built my career on a lot of myth busting stuff. But the thing I would say, and this is going away from nutrition, right, is that choosing health is not a moral choice. It's something that probably over the last year or 2 or 3 I've been talking a bit more about. And And I've just thought of another one maybe as well. The idea that everyone can, so I'm going to give you two answers, that everyone can get to the BMI of 25 or below, and that should be their goal or whatever. I just don't think that is the case for a lot of people. And if we got out of this idea of like trying to get them to this, at least to the upper end of healthy range, and, that would be a good result for people. There are people on this planet who will never get there and stay there, and that should never be their goal. But I suppose the morality thing is, again, my thinking, and, I love nutrition. I'm so passionate about nutrition, but I have started being a lot more philosophical in my life. I think it's, again, hitting a period in your life, a time in your life, a level of success in your life, whatever, then the amount of influence I have on different people in my life, get more philosophical, more time to just this metacognition, thinking about thinking. And that health is not a moral choice. So I think in our industry, there's often this idea that you should be healthy. You're morally superior if you choose to look after yourself. And I think people will probably be challenged to hear me say that I think that's incorrect. And I think if they think about it long and hard enough, that they'll come to the same conclusion. In that we know morality is a very individualized thing. People go, how can you not be vegan? You're immoral. And you go, well, that's not my set of morals. And people need to be respectful of that. And people start going, yeah, but if you don't eat in a certain way and you don't exercise in a certain way, then you don't deserve, if you're obese, you don't deserve treatment because you chose to do that to yourself. Now, then we can go like, is obesity a choice? Is obesity a disease or not? Like, no, it's not a choice. Yes, it is a disease based on definitions. But then, okay, smokers, do you not then treat them for lung cancer? Well, no, you shouldn't. Okay, cool. You chose to do F1 driving, and you chose to do downhill skiing, and you chose to do CrossFit. You don't get any surgery for your broken whatever rotator cuff through doing CrossFit or dropping a bar on your face. You crazy people. You don't get treatment for crashing a car, and you don't get treatment for breaking your leg going down the hill, ACL. They're not inherently healthy things to do. We're pushing our bodies to extremes, and we might hurt ourselves. And so you don't choose necessarily those extreme sports or whatever because they're healthy. But they're seen as like, you should get treatment, but the obese person shouldn't. And likewise, people start then going, oh, but you're costing taxpayers money. And it's like, oh, when was the last time you petitioned about something else? It's just like, you don't sit awake at night and go, where's taxpayers' money going? It's like, again, maybe we shouldn't, people are getting injured doing X, Y, Z. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe that's taking taxpayers' money. So it's just a funny one. I know it's a bit off key with maybe the question and what people might normally answer. I don't know what people normally answer, but it's just something that I've thought about. I've tried to be a much less judgmental human being in every area of my life for a long time now, and really, really challenging myself, like seeing a pregnant mother smoking and judging her, a mother to be, and going, am I right to be judging her? Like, I'm not, I wouldn't ever say anything. I'm a pleasant human being, but as in, I'm like, I've struggled, you're hurt. But then I have this whole thing of you can't choose something in your life and hurt someone else. And I don't. So I've used that one because it's an extreme example. I feel like you can do whatever you want to do. Like, people take recreational drugs, and it's like, and no, in the fitness industry, recreational drugs, steroids or recreational drugs, people use them and no one really judges them, and that's fine. But someone else, drug of choice is whatever, fast food. And they think they can judge people. So I think for me, it's just like, yeah, it's been a paradigm shift with being a less judgmental human, and also understanding that health is not the only choice. You don't have to choose health. And if someone does, then fantastic and great. And the reason I want someone to choose health is because I feel like they can get more out of their life because of it. And I want it for them, but not for me, and not because I'm better than them because I do. But that they'll get more out of their life, and life is so precious and short. So I think it's a funny answer, I understand, but that's what I'm going with.
No, I think it's a great answer. I love that you brought that up. I think like it takes experience, it takes working with clients, it takes, years out educating people and on the floor, and just time to, I think, realize that you can only help people that want your help. And if we're in an industry, if we're in a position, whether you're an educator or you're an influencer or you're a coach or a PT, whatever it might be, you're in a position where you're saying, what I do is I'm going to help you with health related things, and you put your hand up, you start to realize that because you love it so much and you want to help everyone, you want to go and push it out there on people that aren't ready to hear it and don't want it, And the easy example for a lot of people is like their parents, right? They're like, oh, my parents, I'll go help mum lose weight. And then you start going on about all this stuff. But if anything, you turn her off it more. And you just eventually, no matter how many times you have to learn the lesson over and over, is that, do your thing, do the best thing in the world. And then if people are ready and then they want to get healthy, and they have to be ready to get healthy and ready to change. And that is when you're useful. But if someone's not ready, then there's no fucking point. There's no point trying. And if they never want to care, they never want to care. That's on them. Like, there's nothing you can do. You can't force it on them. It won't work,
Agreed.
Yeah. It's like people that love, I don't know. You're a guy that loves cars. I love cars as well. Some people see cars, they see a Lamborghini, they go, so stupid. Such a dumb
what
thing.
waste of money.
Yo, what do you mean? That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Exactly,
You can't force them. You can't force them to like it. That's just how it is,
No,
So it's just everyone is different. Everyone is absolutely different. Okay, so final question: is there anything that came out of the pandemic that you feel like? Obviously, I know you guys are still in it a lot more than we are. We definitely feel like we're out of it. But is there anything? Maybe let's use the year 2020. Even the start of 2021 is a bit more extreme, that came out as a silver lining for you, that wasn't, I spent more time with my kids, or I spent more time at home, I got more downtime. What is a more specific silver lining that came out of it for you?
This is a funny one, right? So you kind of said this before, and when you said it, this was my initial two reactions. One, no, there's not a single silver lining. I can't. And then my mind went, male sex toys. That'll be a funny answer. I was like, lockdown is difficult as a single dad. And I was like, that'll be a funny answer to give.
But sex toys.
So, hey, what did I say? What all your listeners, what did I say about being non-judgmental? Anyway, so the thing I will say is I have not read a book since I was 15 years old, ever. Never read a book. And for the first time, and I buy books, like this is my bookshelf. Some of these are crappy books, some of the behind me, some of the are just books I've been sent by people, but I just never read books. It's not my thing. But I bought Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, again, because I just buy these books and just have them. And sometimes I'll flick them and I'll look at just a page that I saw someone else mentioning, and just look at quotes and references and just out of interest. And I just have them sitting there. It's almost like a collecting thing, and I don't actually do anything with them. So, but I read, or you know what, I've started reading, and it's the most I've ever read of a book since I was 15. And Viktor Frankl's book, and I'm kind of 3/4 of the way through, and it's the most phenomenal book I'm going to say ever read, but it's the most, what I mean is it's the most profound thing that I'm so glad I found. And one of the reasons I bought it was because of all of his quotes that I saw online, which just resonate with me and the way I live my life. And I was just like, I just feel like this guy's speaking to me. And then I read the book during the global pandemic, and I actually found it super helpful, and it really helped me at times when I was struggling with my mental health. And so, and just the quotes in there, I'm a big quote person. I love quotes. And I met with a interior designer yesterday, and they're going to do bits of our offices, but I might get my house and bedroom and stuff with all of these quotes. I want my bedroom to just be covered in a few of my favorite quotes, because like I said about gratitude, it's a great thing if you do have this habit of waking up and doing gratitude. but waking up and seeing some of these quotes that I do constantly remind myself of, and I have these things in my head. I have a good memory. I'm able to kind of recall them, and I reflect on them, at various points. And so I'm going to get these quotes done in different ways. So I can just wake up and the first thing that goes into my mind are these super virtuous, great ways of thinking and things to base your life on it. And, I'm not sure how aware or interested you are in Stoicism or some of that stuff, but, the Stoic philosophy of life, and this book, it just encompasses all of it. So, and one of his quotes within that book will go on the wall. And, so I think that's my silver lining is I read most of that book, and at the same time, just the stuff that I took away from that book, I think will serve me well for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's a great book, and I would recommend if you haven't picked it up and read it, it's definitely a must. And I think a lot of people have heard of it, so probably maybe this is a cue for them to read it. But that's a great place to finish. So Martin, you have a few different things that you do. Maybe tell us about each of them and then where people can find them.
Yeah, so best place if anyone wants to message me or look into more of my work or whatever is Instagram. I spend a lot of time on there these days just interacting with people. I'm quite interactive. People are like, oh, I can't believe you replied to my DM. And I'm just like, I'm just a normal person who loves this stuff. So but yeah, the big things that we've really got coming up is we've got our July enrollment for Mac Nutrition Uni. We've now gone down to 1 intake a year. So intake starts in September. So for any of your personal trainer, practitioner, listeners, get on that, because the next time will be 2022. And we're launching this layperson's course, MN School of Nutrition. So again, trying to launch that this year. So it's going to be this all-encompassing nutrition course for someone who doesn't want to be a practitioner, self-paced study and those kind of things. So, and then I've obviously got my website, martin-macdonald.com. There's some like free lectures, behavior change, dieting to single-digit body fat, PCOS. If people want to, learn more from me, that stuff's there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and I'm sure the listeners do as well, and sharing a lot of that stuff. So thank you. And hopefully we can do it again in the future.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.